This is Eric Muathe with Muathe.com on a historic day where we see BTC trading above 23,000 today. So right now an all-time high, but in this video I want to discuss Ripple, and I want to discuss this concept, this understanding that sometimes, believe it or not, you don't want your stocks or your cryptos to be moving because they violate the rest period. Let me explain. On the weekly time frame, if you take a weekly closing high, what you want an instrument to do after a nice run, in an ideal situation, you want there to be at least 2 weeks of rest. Week number 1, and then another week below the close, so that on the 4th week, we have the minimum required rest period, so that if it breaks out, it's gonna have now a new definition, a new fresh pair of legs or 4 legs, depending on what kind of an animal it is, or maybe 6. All right, anyway. So sometimes you actually don't want your stocks to move until they have this 2 weeks of rest on the weekly, if you are using the weekly time frame. The reason is the following. If you don't have the minimum rest period, so let's say you pause on a weekly closing basis, you have 1 down week, and then on the 3rd week you break out. What that means is that actually it is a continuation of the previous move. It's not a fresh move. This is a big deal because what this means is that ultimately, if you don't have enough rest, you're going to eventually roll over because you don't have the legs and you're tired. So what I'm getting at is very simple here. We are seeing right now Ethereum moving above the recent weekly closing high, and this is after only 1 week of rest. So actually what you'd want to happen here, in my opinion, is yes, let it move, but by the end of the week, the end of the trading week, you'd actually rather it close below the recent weekly closing high, because that would give it the qualification for minimum 2 weeks of rest. Because right now, if it continues trading above this recent weekly closing high after only 1 week of rest, what this means, and this is the issue, is that it's moving as a continuation of this move. So there's not enough rest. It's actually a continuation of this breakout here. And like I'm saying, it's generally speaking, on average, that means that if you don't have the required amount of rest period, you are more than likely going to run into resistance sooner than later, and you're going to have to pull back to set a new base. So sometimes actually you'd rather not move. Hope that makes sense. And actually, even on the monthly, for the end of the month, let's take a look at the monthly. You can see here now we have 1 month of rest as of right now for Ripple. And actually, you'd rather it not move this month and not break above November's monthly closing high. Because if it moves above November's monthly closing high, then the monthly chart has no rest period, and a continuation on a month-to-month basis would be a follow-through or follow-up to this move that began last month. So that's why I'm saying sometimes actually you'd rather your stocks not move so they can have the required rest period, so they can have a substantially big move. So in theory, you'd rather have a down month in November, and that is going to achieve the minimum requirements, because on the monthly, minimum requirements is 1 month at least. And that would mean with the rested 1 month that a new breakout would have very strong potential for a sharp, continuous rested move that can go way farther, way beyond the current move. Without rest, you're only going to go so far. So I would say those who are bullish on Ripple, in my opinion, you'd rather it not move on a weekly time frame this week, and you'd rather it stays below and records a negative month for December, so at least it can be rested enough for the potential of a bigger, stronger, sustained move down the road, at least from early 2021. Something else to consider, and why I would say it makes more sense not to move right now for some of the cryptos, you'd want this to be a negative month so that, again, you can have the ability to break out. The recent November monthly closing high would be the buy point. If we have a down month, that sets the stage for potential breakout in 2021. And it also allows the RSI and the MACD to meet the minimum requirements for the ultimate Muathe breakout. Because if you take a look at this 3 years of monthly data, you can see that there's a problem here because the RSI cannot move to 3-year highs right now. As you can see, it can't because of this hump. So it has to be higher. And that's why I'm saying a future breakout would make more sense in the coming year. And you see the MACDs would also need some more time, so they can also be moving to 3-year highs. So that's why I'm saying sometimes you don't want your instruments to move, you want them to set up properly. Now, if we do a little bit of an adjustment and go to 34 months instead of 36 months, you can see that now we are getting very close to the RSI breaking out, but we need at least 1 month of rest, is my thinking here. 1 month of rest would be perfect, and it would give the MACD, as I'm saying, some time, a little bit more time to catch up, so they can also be at 3-year highs. Without the minimum requirements of the ultimate Muathe breakout, there is a possibility that this will not be very successful, or at least not as successful as it might seem on the surface. You need this ultimate Muathe breakout minimum requirements so that you can have a sustained, powerful move. Eric Muathe, Muathe.com. Love light, light love. Namaste.